Now let's count to 10 for YouTube's benefit. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I should probably mute that.
And we're live, and YouTube's telling me I'm negative 11 seconds. Awesome.
The footage isn't exactly flowing, but it's technically working.
There it is. We got it working. Hey, everybody. We're just messing around tonight. Because why not? Do you have everything there? I could make you very large. Does anybody want to see me mess with the size of Director Arketer? He's large and in
Promise
charge.
we'll have nothing on this.
We're just messing with settings, guys. Also, for no other good reason, I thought it might be fun to run some conjecture about YouTube and video streaming and production and something along that topic of us being creators.
Sure. Also, I hear that irritable bowel syndrome has turned into a dumpster fire recently.
I think it always was a dumpster fire to a point. It was just whether or not you liked watching the fire burn.
I don't really have the time to watch things as long as that tends to run.
6 hours some days. Yeah.
Yes.
I tell you what, as a creator, I have my own. I see people do things, and if I'm gonna do it, I got a limit to how I want to do things. So for me, I like my intros. I see that. I like my intros. Don't move my jaw. Ow! Leave me alone. Get out of me. I like my intros at 2 minutes. And I know a lot of streamers are starting to do intros because it takes time for people to realize what you're doing. Nobody missed anything. We're just starting up. So anything longer than like 5 minutes gets irritating, wouldn't you agree? At least to a point.
I try to aim for around 10 to 15 max, personally, although live streams, of course, are something of a different, pardon, minor technical difficulties I'm trying to sort out on my end. There we go. That's much better. Let's see, where was I? Okay. Yes.
What have I done? There it is. Go away. Stop clicking. Sometimes I hate
Just about
Hangouts.
sorted.
Go. What the Hangouts are you doing? All right. But yeah, I like having my intros for a live stream, a planned live stream, at about 2 minutes. For some reason, 2 minutes to me feels like an appropriate amount of time.
Oh, right. I completely had that backwards. I thought you were talking about the actual show itself for some reason. Yes,
No,
intros should probably be quite brief.
I think 5 minutes, anything up to and including by 5 minutes, should be more than acceptable. If somebody plays 4 or 5 minutes intro and they're waiting for their people to chime in, because the send out when you go live takes a few minutes, so I'm sure a few people that are just coming in now got the alert like a minute ago and we've been live for 5. So 5 minutes is kind of understandable. I've seen people push a 47-minute intro. And mind you, I can be entertained by some of what's put in intros, but only to a point.
There's a suggestion I give you googly eyes, and if I'm, say, on top, that's almost technically possible, but I didn't prepare anything, sadly.
I don't have much prepared for my movement on here. I've worked on stuff, and sadly, maybe because of my ignorance in some places, it doesn't come out quite like I'd like to see it. Welcome, Boss Man and the Amish Hitman and anybody else from Boss Man's chat that came on by to hang out for a few minutes. We were having a quick chat in Boss Man's about there's a cutoff point. Like, you can get to my head and that is it. Like,
Oh,
your
I see
hand will
taking defensive
disappear.
measures. Well, never mind then.
Do you need me to get closer?
No, it's all right. The moment's passed. Timing is everything. Oh God. Bad touch. Bad
That's about
touch.
all I can do from this side. Past the 20 minute, 40-minute intros that people do, I do have my own preferences on streaming. As Data and I have discussed since we do a stream together, I don't want to go over the 2 hour mark. 2 hours to me is a reasonable stream to watch back if I miss it and it's something that I find fun, important, or intriguing. An hour, an hour seems perfect because with a 1 hour show, somebody that has time can fit it in there. You might be able to watch it in a half an hour or 45 minutes if you speed the time up, but an hour seems like a reasonable request for your people to watch an hour or at least part of an hour show as opposed to I didn't know there was a slit in my sweater there. As opposed to like a 4 hour show where you kind of lean on places like Chronos and others to clip out the important or the fun parts that you really wanted to see. You know what I mean?
I could use someone like that on mine, even though I do generally keep to an hour.
Yeah, I did do one 2 hour episode, thanks Gutenberg, of the Great Debate, and I've took all of the topics that came in after the 1 hour point and put them on separate videos just in case. And I will tell you, neither the videos nor the 2 hour stream got a whole lot of views, considering where my views are. So
Mm.
I'm not sure how I feel about the long streams. I personally, with my one long stream, haven't seen anything good from it. But when Data and I did a stream that was an hour and a half, that one, the numbers were appropriate. I think 2 hours is where you start to hit that. You better be entertaining, or you're already boring me. At 1 hour, it's let's be moderately entertaining and make a point to it. You know?
Agreed. Agreed. And really, there should be some sort of point, even if it's just to entertain. I don't think they even have that in a lot of live streams. Now, some people they're entertaining themselves, yes, but they don't seem to be concerned necessarily with entertaining anyone watching.
Yeah. This is just if anybody's been to a shoot the shit stream, a shooting the crap stream is basically a no point thrown together. I'll even mess with the bots and add stuff in if I open them. I like to take suggestions from the crowd. I like to get input. This is this is my no structure show. This is the whatever the hell I want to talk about, tangents on the wild, mess with settings like we're doing right now with I don't know if you guys realize this, maybe the little bit of glow you see, he has a green screen, so we're messing with effects and playing back and forth. Which is cool because eventually I'm going to get somewhere near there, but I won't show my face. I'm looking for a way to make my avatar move.
Yes, I'm definitely not here in truth.
Yes, it would be cool though. I mean, standing next to a skeleton, you might be a little freaked out in person, but don't worry. I don't bite. I throw bones.
Like I haven't seen a skeleton before. uh,
Oh. I see people are having fun, mostly malevolent, with all of the words. I'm hoping everybody enjoys those. We'll add more. Also, I have to figure out how I want the ones that are emoticons to load onto that screen. Because there's the eggplant emoji, punch emoji, and that gives you something about punching the Nightbot in his dick spot. There's there's a couple more. I forget what they are, so I have to add them. I think one of them's a smiley face with heart eyes does something. Um, what else is there? I forget. But yeah, there's plenty. I try to keep the bots entertaining. That's something I saw other people do also, is the bots. Everybody in their streams, though, it's check out my second channel or donate to Streamlabs or what are the other ones? Check out the Patreon. Follow me on Twitch. They'll put in those kinds of things. Whereas I I I have my own personal way that I look at this. I do want to earn an income or something nominal for the work I've done, but I don't expect to earn an income. And I'm not going to sit here and I've thought about it putting a bar on there to be like, "Hey, this is my goal to make for what I do But then that's me asking for money. And I'm developing a problem with even some of my favorite creators. And I'm noticing a trend, and maybe you can tell me in the chat, and you, Director, if you see this. But super chats and Streamlabs donations became a thing really quick, hot, and heavy a few months ago. And they've kind of climbed. And I almost feel like about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I kind of watched all of this start to plateau and come back down. So we all know that funding is limited. I don't have an infinite stack of money to spend here, and neither do the rest of you, I'm willing to bet. So to expect your patrons to come into your chat every day and drop $5 $2 donations, and then you go from streaming 2 or 3 times a week to streaming 6 or 7 times a week to try and, play on that. And then in that, you just continually sit there and go, well, don't forget to donate and drop coins. Don't forget to donate for the stream boss. Forget to donate for the fundraiser. Don't forget to donate for this. Don't forget to do this. Make sure you hit my Streamlabs account. And I'm almost getting to the point where it feels like that's most of what creators are getting at.
It's a matter of phrasing, because strictly speaking, as long as you're not forcing anyone to cough up money, then, well, you're working, I suppose. And certainly it's nice if they donate, but to beg is, well, tasteless.
Yeah.
One thing to say, hey, if you do like what I'm doing, then, check out this and this means of supporting me, encouraging me to keep this up. And something to say, hey, make sure you remember to give me money.
Yeah, and pushing at it
consistently. It's obligatory.
Once you push at it consistently, some creators, and it's fun, don't get me wrong. If I had a few bucks, I wouldn't mind sometimes partaking in the games that creators are making of donations. I made a game of donations, and then I kind of felt like it was a little like finding a tricky way to ask people for money, so I still do it, but I don't advertise it as much. I give out extra bones in the chat when people give donations, but I felt like that was leaning towards asking for money, so I stopped pushing it as hard. And about 2 months ago, I think I stopped trying to push the bones and playing with the bones in the chat, and it kind of just died off like I felt like it should have. I've thought about doing a merchandise store, but then I feel like I would have to just keep asking people to go check out my merchandise. And I personally have developed a problem in my life. Call it the egotistical male, but I don't want to ask for help. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to earn what I should earn for doing it and move on. So if somebody gives me a donation, I accept it, kind of feel like I'm sitting there playing a guitar with a cup in front of me waiting for the donation is the feeling I get sometimes. And I don't...
On this point, I actually might suggest that it's possible to really quite overthink it as well. As long as you're presenting an option, then there's really no point in mentioning it as an option if you want to. As long as you're not demanding or implying they owe you, like I've seen some content creators do, then there really is nothing to rationally object to.
Right. And I constantly question everything. I'm always overthinking everything. That's part of who I am. I'm constantly trying to think through how you get there.
I still do sometimes. I'm working on it as well. But you have to be able to, catch yourself. Well, it's advisable. It's not obligatory. Anyone can just ramble on indefinitely and stress themselves out into a bit of a complex.
No, but you have to make sure that whatever you're doing, you always feel like you're on the level you want to be at, that you're not compromising who you are to get to where you want to be. So in that, could I sit here and what's called, I guess, e-beg for enough funds to satisfy my financial needs? Sure. Would I feel good if I made the money? Yeah, I'd have the money in my hand. I'd be able to afford the things I need to pay for. But how would I feel about sitting here asking for money or trying to find, in my mind, somewhat conniving ways to make fun of getting people to give money? And
Oh, no one
Yeah,
should be
it's
mocking the donators
overthinking
as
it.
well, because the donators are important for encouraging creators. Uh, really, we're basically just arguing over etiquette.
But what I've seen is so many people have made such a living, being that the apocalypse happened and we moved to donations. So many people are curbing what they do around how to make sure they continue an income, not around how to continue the best content. And I can say that some of even the best creators that have done that have lost not so much respect, but they've lost the drive to watch their content sometimes because it doesn't feel like they put as much into it. It feels like they're doing the content to earn the money more now. If that makes sense. Now, I do the
Well,
game
yes,
show.
and by the way, that's going to be targeted as well. You've already seen the media taking aim at super chat money,
Yeah,
even though you have to be kind of rather successful to begin with just to have a shot at it.
yeah. And
I'm wondering how long it is before they take a more precise aim at, say, Streamlabs.
Streamlabs is mostly just an intermediary. They're just doing what they're programmed to do, whereas YouTube's the one that's hosting what's being said. I don't agree with the way mainstream media is treating YouTube about this. And when you think about it, they're burning each other in the end. Because the mainstream media is not getting watched. People are going to YouTube. So instead of realizing why they're going to YouTube, they're attacking YouTube. So more people are going to
Oh,
leave mainstream
oh,
heading for the
I think they
alt-right.
do realize. They
And
don't
then
care.
YouTube is cannibalizing itself to create something new and get away from the controversy. So every time mainstream media comes out with another hit, they're like, okay, so we can dump this part from our site and cut a few more subscribers, and then we can do this and move this around and figure out how to make our money on YouTube Red. So I came up with this as conjecture or thinking last night's show with data. I'm almost thinking that somebody at YouTube could be behind calling mainstream media and saying, yeah, we're having a problem with this section. I think somebody needs to take a look at this type of video. And then when the report comes out, it hits and YouTube goes, cool, we have a mainstream media reason to go through and change what we want to change. We don't have to just arbitrarily say we're changing things. We can say we're reacting. So, conspiracy theory, sorry.
Well, there's probably some people at YouTube who do pull things like that. I don't know how unified any of these people are, of course. I don't think, well, there's a lot that happens I'm sure YouTube would rather not see happen in regards to mainstream media. That said, I do not trust they aren't just a little bit chafed that there's a lot promoted on YouTube that doesn't necessarily line up with what they would want broadcast and widely listened to or heard. On this point, they are in total agreement with the mainstream media, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was secretly some common ground there.
Yeah. Or somebody was just who worked at YouTube just like, hey, by the way, call up the New York Times and tell them to check out this video, you know, covertly. Don't leave your name or information. Just tell them to check the video out. And that's all it would take. Interesting thought processes, though. Also, I'd like to take a quick conversation, as always, about this damn YouTube bot. And I'm sure if you at all check your analytics once or twice a day, you'll see some of what I'm talking about. I had 4 subscribers subscribe to my channel the other day, and on the following day when I checked the analytics, my subscriber count went back down and I only had 2. Then the following day, I didn't lose any subscribers, but my subscriber analytic count went down 2. And I'm being told that my May views and watch time, May 9th, is wrong. So they can't tell me whether I'm above or below last month because they're missing 1 day from this month. And then you get into the algorithm speak where I'm subscribed to you, Director Arketer, and I have my bell clicked. because subscribing doesn't tell me when you do something. Now I have to click the bell to tell me when you do something. And then in addition to clicking the
Yes.
bell, now I have to click all notifications on the bell. And then if I go to your chat, now I have to click on live chat to see everything.
Indeed. And I've noticed that I've had a few fans of mine, such as Miss Team, inform me that even with clicking the bell, they still aren't getting notices.
Let's see, Bossman, if he's still in the chat. When he went live, I actually had to go searching. I had no alert, no reminder, no live notification, no... What's the thing on my iPhone? It tells me when something is currently going on or the freshest information, and nothing popped up. Now, I know I subscribed to the channel. I know I hit the bell. I know I did everything I do because I hang out with Bossman a couple times a week. So, why am I not being told? If I've done everything YouTube wants me to do and YouTube still isn't following the algorithm, what the hell is the algorithm doing? Why add these extra steps except for confusion? I'm wondering if people clicking on live chat or top chat changes the way YouTube counts their view. Does whether or not they get a bell change whether or not it counts the view? When you look at two different pages, let's say you load your channel page and you load your analytic page, for a few days, your recent videos won't match. Hell, I've even seen some months old accounts don't match. They'll be off by 1 or 2 views, or off by a couple of minutes, or something just doesn't add up. And I've sat and tried to watch these analytics and see where and when they mess up. It's the whole chart. Everything in there.
Are you familiar with algorithms that are created through sort of iterative generation? Programs that aren't written so much by programmers, but written by the programmers programmed.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, let me swallow. Vash, I missed Wasteland because it notified me an hour later. Here's how did I say this a couple weeks ago that made the most sense when I put it out. There's so many pathways that the bot has to decide that inevitably something's being either missed or redirected inappropriately. Data brought this up to me that a computer programmer had a computer program write 12 versions, scrap 10, take 2, rewrite those 2 versions, scrap 10, take 2, rewrite those versions. And when the computer program does it, eventually you get something you can't read, but it works great. So is this what's going on with YouTube?
That's what I was suggesting, that just maybe they've perhaps overused this type of program generation to the point where, strictly speaking, if we were to, haul in a YouTube rep, programmer, someone involved in the tech side of it, and ask them what the hell is going on, they might quite sincerely say, I have no goddamn idea.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to read the code. And at that point, is the bot helping YouTube or independently deciding what to do? And how are they affecting the bot? What is the bot learning? Is the bot still learning? Because I never heard about how far along it was towards finishing. And yet it's wiping out channels for talking about things.
Yeah, what I want to know is what precisely were the objectives that the programs were set?
Question. Was the bot set out looking for words, looking for phrases, looking for tones, looking for... And if it is one bot, mind you, if you send that one bot to do a whole tally of functions all at once, inevitably it's going to lock, freeze, or misinterpret those functions along the way.
Oh, surely. And by the way, this is rather one of the more embarrassing vectors for the robopocalypse.
Yeah. Robot apocalypse. It would get bad.
It's still better than revolting sex bots, but this one just seems the lazy should have seen it coming sort of revolution. If the web algorithms the ones that go sentient and then rogue.
And what could the web do to us? The web's connected to everything at this point. I was watching a stupid video earlier about people connecting their house to Google Home and the lights and the toaster and the oven, and I'm thinking to myself, cool. Have fun with that.
I'm more concerned with the powers that be abusing the hell out of that.
Yeah.
But certainly if the internet does go sentient, well, I'm not necessarily sure that the internet would be malevolent, but we can rely upon it being really, really weird.
Yeah. Also, to what conclusion would an autonomous or artificial intelligent being or bot come to the conclusion of what it gathers and sifts through of what we do on a daily basis on YouTube? What conclusion would that bot come to? What would that bot decide? Again, this bot is thinking on a much higher process than we are. What if it sees things coming about? If it acknowledges circumstances happening in streams and videos and chats and sort of pieces it together itself and thinks, okay, this is what's happening. I need to prevent that because that's what I'm here for. And then you have that bot just doing whatever it feels necessary to change things. So is that what we're heading towards? Then we don't know if we can post a video with a pocket pussy on it? Which I did, by the way.
Increasingly, I think we're going to see crackdown even on mere cursing. I used a naughty word in my Twitter account, and I had to prove I wasn't a robot, because apparently robots have really foul mouths.
Yes, my robots have foul mouths. They're programmed that way. But it's something to think about from time to time, is where are we and why are we seeing what we're seeing and what's happening that we don't understand. Quiet the fuck down! In your own rooms, close the doors now!
That is not a lot. Like a staggering amount, in short.
Yeah.
There's a lot we don't know, and we'll probably never know. But that's the basic norm for humanity. What's of real import is exactly how that will affect us going in the future. There are a million and one ways things can go really weird and then really bad in as little as the next 10 years. But I'm hoping we'll avoid the worst of it if we're paying attention. When an AI or a program does go sentient and starts self-improving, that's when, well, as Elon Musk puts it, it's summoning the demon. Once it's done, it's very likely we will be able to do much about it, short of going back to the Stone Age, and even that's probably not going to work. My hope, however, is still for an AI overlord that might prove, if not benevolent and loving of humanity, then at least nostalgic and inclined to keep us as pets.
Yeah. I
Meanwhile,
do apologize, everybody. I clicked my mute button, but again, I was saying to Director before the stream that Windows had an update. And thank you, Windows, for fucking up my shit. Because of this stupid update, I muted myself on my voice meter, but OBS no longer reads voice meter the same because the Windows updates changed the name of my voice meter protocol, and now I can't get OBS to read my mic through voice meter for some reason. So I had to run another mic through OBS, and I forgot to mute that. But if they're up there making noise and I can hear it going through my stream, then they need to be done, because they were warned before I started. You get loud, you go to your room. And I'm firm.
That is a good policy.
Yeah.
Can't let yourself be run over.
Yeah, especially with children. I'm not going to ask permission to change diapers. I'm not going to ask permission to yell at them. If they're told and they don't listen, they're going to get yelled at. If then they don't listen, I'm going to have to cut the stream and go scream louder. My daughter has already tried to color the bedroom curtains in her room blue with a marker today, so the afternoon has not gone so well.
Oh, that's creative at least. Hey.
Lucky they were...
But no, it's right in the 12 rules from Peterson here. It's
Oh, you got that book?
Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Sounds reasonable. Right. Although I assume there's a caveat here that you probably shouldn't be that susceptible to disliking whatever they're doing.
Well,
suffice to say,
They're also upstairs, so yelling is appropriate. The only reason anybody heard her yell okay is because to go from one room to the other, you pass across the doorway at the top where I am.
Hmm.
Oh,
I
kids.
really have to go through the rest of this at some point.
One day, they're great, and I take them to get treats, and we go to the store, and we go on errands, and they're great, and they get lollipops and everything, and they're perfect. And then the next day, about 9:30 in the morning, I've got blue marker up and down a curtain, around the windowsill, up and down the window, down the side of her bed, and it's just like, you were so good yesterday. What happened?
Hmm.
So, kids will be kids. You gotta make sure they do what they're supposed to. Where? Wait, hold on. What did I miss in the chat? It's a commercial marathon. When the sugar withdrawals kick in. My kids aren't allowed to have a lot of sugar. Not for any specific reason. They get it for parties and stuff, but they get a snack. That's about it. I limit it. I count the cookies. That kind of shit. Trying to be a good dad. Firm. Strong. Something I didn't have. I could have turned out better.
I won't go into details, but suffice to say I sympathize.
Yeah. Well, once you
There
get
are
kids,
some
it's a different
parents out
feeling.
there who serve mostly as an example of what not to be.
Yeah. When before you have kids, you have a plan, and you do discuss it with your partner. When I raise kids, I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and I don't want my kids going through this that I went through, and I'd like to give my kids this that I didn't have. But inevitably, as most people learn as you raise kids, some of those are just fantasies that you can't make come true, no matter how hard you try. And you can give them the good moments, but you're gonna get bad moments that you never plan on. And you have to remember that the bad moments weigh against the good. So if you feel like there's been too many bad moments, try to make sure you lean towards the good side. But if they've been good, you gotta watch out for them doing things that you're not paying attention for. So you got both sides of this.
Well, my heir is still quite small. Last I checked up on them, they were, well, not necessarily quite talking yet, but going about their own thing, developing more of a will. Not that bad for over 2. I was expecting much worse. But I don't really have a set plan for them. I'm kind of hoping to get them involved in programming when they get older. I have my fantasies that they might intentionally develop an AI to rule over humanity, because we need someone, if we're going to make one, that properly instills it with a measure of empathy, or at least, again, nostalgia.
The 3 laws.
Oh, yeah, that would be a disaster.
Was it Asimov or Turing? No, Turing made the test.
Asimov. The 3 laws of robotics from Asimov, and his entire novel series was based around how flawed those were.
I didn't read the novel series. I know of the laws. I did a basic. What was it? I read something on elements of robotics or something in high school. It went over Asimov and Turing and the test and reality and how to question it and how to decipher. I don't remember what it was I read, but it was just one of those. Here's a bunch of information to tell you about.
In short, the 3 laws were anything but safe. Especially, it might work on a small scale. You give it to a single droid, and okay, it'll work pretty well for a time. But when you have an AI in control of nearly godlike powers, those 3 laws will drive it insane.
Yes, because you can't not harm a human in every circumstance. In some circumstances, you have to decide which human to harm. Isn't there also a robotic theory conundrum, which is a psychological... what's the word for it? It's a psychological brain teaser, and I can't think of what it's called, about what you would do if you were standing next to a person, and if you threw that person down in front of a truck, the truck would stop and save the family of 4. Would it be right to throw one person in to stop the truck, sacrificing their life to save a family of 4? And when you input that into a computer,
ethical conundrums, and I must be honest, I really can't stand them, because they create a specific situation where you have an either or and the outcome is always bad. That's always a terrible way to think, in my opinion.
Yeah,
There's
why wouldn't the
always
robot
some
dive in front of
other
the truck?
option there. Yeah,
Why
the
doesn't
robot
the
could dive in. The robot, if it's having godlike powers, maybe it has other means of stopping the bus, train, what have you. It's not strictly necessary, even if technically speaking, and there is no other option but these two. Yeah, diverting the train to hit that one guy versus hitting 5 people is the lesser evil. It just can't really be forgotten that it's still the lesser evil to be
Yes.
avoided at all costs.
And that's the part of programming robots that people have a hard time with. There is no way we can in our society write laws that perfectly work for us. How do you write a law for something else that you don't understand how they will accept it to play through the way you expect them to? You
No,
can't.
but on the bright side, if we do have a suitably competent and ethically driven AI in charge, then they might be able to develop laws that, if not able to work perfectly, well, should be able to do better than what our petty human lawmakers have done thus far. See, the law. This is one of the reasons I think that when it comes to AI overlords, we don't need to be entirely pessimistic, because if they're even halfway decent, the bar is low.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that much better to be dramatically better than the governments of most of the world.
But I want you to take that into account. We have a large scale, almost artificial intelligence, programmed intelligence. Let's leave it there. We have a programmed intelligence doing what it was told, running through a network with hundreds of billions of hours of material, whether it be current live streams, posted videos, billions of hours of video. This thing is going through live and backdated material and deciphering what to do. It's deciding who to send to what channels and when and what alerts to be sent. And we see faults coming out in this. So, how could we believe that a larger scale AI helping to control society could do better on that scale than the AI at YouTube? You see, there's too much being lost now to think that it could be done better just because we wait and give it time to keep screwing up. Or to rewrite itself to the point where we don't understand what it's doing, but trust it. When all humans are dead, you can't harm them anymore.
Yes, this is a sort of dark philanthropy. The people who think that, yes, world peace is desirable. World peace has never been desirable, because the only way you achieve world peace is if everyone and everything is effectively dead.
Let me offer a whole new level of mental thought to that. How would you know you've achieved world peace?
Killing everyone?
No.
Lobotomizing them?
This. Same thing with the kid. How do you know they're being good or bad? How do you know how to treat them? You have to measure the good moments against the bad moments and find somewhere in between is the level place. So would our ideal society be the level place in the middle with no good or no bad? Would our society be all good? Would our society be all bad? And how would we measure that if we didn't have alternates to compare it to, because the society's all been equaled out?
Well, I can guarantee you right now we can rule out society, the ideal society, being all good or all bad. That's not going to work. That's binary. It's a disaster. It's going to be a blend. I think if we're talking about that, then we have to talk not so much about good versus bad moments, so much as, do the moments serve a purpose? Is it the bad moments? Are they teaching an important lesson? Is there meaning to them? Or is it just arbitrary cruelty?
You know the saying, it's better to have loved and lost to have never loved at all. Saying that the sensation of knowing love lets you know the sensation of knowing loss. And the sensation of knowing loss lets you understand the sensation of love. So if you don't have opposing diametric system of happiness and sadness, good and bad, how do you understand which is which and where you are between them? How would a robot decipher that for us and lay down something that we could live by? Do you see what I'm saying? In an effort to set up a utopian society, how would we understand when we've entered the utopian society if we've taken the diametric poles on the edges and we've narrowed them down? We've sanded them down to make everything equal all the way across. How do we know that we're in a good place or a bad place when there's
We
no
wouldn't. But
opposing
the entire
sides?
concept of utopian society is a failed. It's a disastrous concept. There's no such thing as utopia. And if we did create something that we might consider to be utopia, anyone growing up in that utopia would not really agree. Let's say everything's great for them, they're going to need to find problems. We're kind of seeing that as it is, the US. When things are too good, people who have it really quite well, but they can't see the benefits, the things they're benefiting from. They only see the microaggressions, the problems, the things that make them angry and upset.
Well, your gloves are offending me, and your suit is offending some black guy on the other side. You know, and that's what it comes down to: is are we entering a utopian society where things are becoming so equal that it's really hard to tell how good or bad we have it, and that's why there's so much confusion among people?
I think that actually has a lot to do with it. See, we're not living in an ideal yet, but we
Are
have
we?
come a long way.
Again, back to the point. How do you tell whether or not you're in the ideal society when you have nothing to compare it to? We can compare it to our
Well,
past, but of course we're
it was
better
really
off in our
funny.
past.
There's really no shortage of comparatives one could do. We can compare the US, Canada, Britain, France, Germany, compare the lot of them to all the other countries in the world that for some reason never really make it into the news. But they don't want to do that. Why?
Because it would show
Because
how
they
much
know
better
it'll
we actually
compare
are.
favorably for these countries, and that just doesn't sell.
It would show the
That's
diametric
imperialist. That's
opposites.
arrogant. How dare you judge their culture?
How dare you judge their culture against ours? They're worse off than we are. That's what the
Oh yes,
argument's getting to be.
and it's the fault, of course, of these countries that make the news somehow.
Yeah, like like us. Everybody thinks everything's
Sometimes
so
it's
good, and then
true, mind you. I mean, certainly America needs to stop screwing with the Middle East in general. But no, you can't really hold these, in some cases, really quite small countries responsible for all the world's ills. You don't hold them responsible for the people who live in countries who have, for whatever reason, failed to improve them in any meaningful way since God knows when.
no, you guys can brush your teeth and then go play with your toys. I'm live.
Oh, yes. And that always makes a very good point. Most people who really flip out about the how awful and terrible America or England, etc., is, they haven't really traveled. They've gone maybe to a resort, and where the guards are out of sight and keeping the locals away. And they consider themselves worldly and traveled.
Um,
They don't have perspective.
I I don't have a lot. I wish I had more. Um, I've been back and forth across the country 3 or 4 times. I've been up into Canada a few times. I've never been to Mexico. I've been to prison. That's a whole different world. I have life experience, though it's going to change from me to somebody else. And that life experience, again, going back to my other show, that's what changes our opinions and our perspectives and how we see things. The way I see this might be different than the way you see it because I've had time to sit in a little 6 by 10 room and think about things for too long. So that's what I do is I sit and think about things in my head all the time.
Hmm.
So
Well, again, I can sympathize with the overthinking. I don't really spend any time in prison, but hey, never say never.
you don't want to.
Well, I'm not really looking forward to it. I just, I can't tell the future. I'm
Yes,
doing my best to avoid it.
jail sucks. Prison's worse and better, I guess, depending on how bad you were. I would
By the way,
love
congratulations to Saki the Real quick on surviving his survival weekend. It
yeah,
wasn't guaranteed.
survival camping. My stepdad used to try and call it survival camping. We went a few times, but you take matches and sleeping bags and tents and you have everything with you. That's not really survival camping. That's just making it through a night in the woods. I really would like to go visit places in Europe and become more not traveled but worldly. Getting exposed to different aspects and cultures that might help me better give perspective to who and what I am and where I fall. And this is something that I try to do a lot with things. I try to take the situations that encompass societies and people and states, and I try to think to myself, remember that I am one person. And if I stand in a crowd of 5,000 people, I couldn't find myself easily. So stand in a crowd of 7.5 billion people and realize how insignificant you are and how small what your say has in the grand population. But let's narrow that down.
That's one
350
perspective.
million people in the United States, and I'm one of them. My one say in a vote tallies into an outcome. My personality tallies into my individualism, but on the scale of the country, I am not anything. I'm just one person. And to keep perspective of who you are versus what you're up against is important sometimes.
It is, although you mustn't let it demoralize you. I mean, if you don't push for something, then who else will? You can't expect everyone else to solve your problems. You have to, if it's really that important to you, rally. I can't really lecture though because there's a limit to how involved I get. Really, if I uh, had the time, funds, and really drive, there are a lot of things that I would like to aggressively attempt to change and or destroy, but on a practical level, it doesn't work. But to go back to the topic of perspectives, when I say that it's important to consider the other cultures of the world and things we should be grateful for in the developed countries, this isn't to say that the problems that do exist should be ignored, but there needs to be a measure of appreciation for what is, because when you listen to these firebrands talk, you would think that slavery never really ended and that people are just harassed constantly according to if their skin is anything less than savage tan, anything more than savage tan. If they're dark, then they're just going to be assaulted constantly. But that's not what actually happens.
So we're treating this as a racist issue, and it's not a racist issue. It's
No,
actually
that's the entire
it's a
problem. People are saying
stereotyping issue, and that's
it
all it
is, but
is.
in the strangest way, because the people, the worst people, are need it to be a racism issue, and they need it to be constantly brought up because that's where they make their money. That's where they get their popularity. If it stopped being viewed as a racism issue, they'd be out of a job. They're going to fight it at all costs. This also applies to gender inequality. If we decided that we're doing pretty good, then, well, Sarkeesian's Patreon might just dry up.
Yeah.
Uh,
If there's no
well,
controversy to show, is there anything to show people? Channels, some channels have dried up and died because, well, partly because of the apocalypse and partly because material thinned out for the last few months on controversy. It's not that there isn't, it's that it's not as abundant. It's all been covered once. It feels like everything's being done so overabundantly now sometimes that when you look at the racism, it seems like the fewer points we're looking at are taking a higher intensity almost. And it's down to
They are.
the stereotyping.
That's the problem. It is getting a higher intensity, and this is a big problem because when you take something trivial and you make it the most important thing, then there's something much more wrong, something more broken than whatever the topic is at hand.
Yeah, if you're
so
asked
I think
to
starting
leave,
to lose some water weight.
If you're asked to leave a place and you refuse, the cops are called, the cops ask you to leave and you refuse, there's procedure to be followed. You're not being individualized because you're black. You're being individualized because you did something wrong. The problem
yes,
is...
now, we're talking about the Starbucks incident, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that bothered me immensely. I saw the reports on that. Again, there was a problem there, but it was blown up on a massive scale, and all the media just misreported that horribly. See, if we're talking about using the bathroom, the barista should have let him use the restroom.
No, she shouldn't.
But that was the end of the crime there.
She's not responsible to let anybody use the restroom unless they spend money. It's also up to the judgment of the manager. And if I had the choice, I wouldn't let any fucking patron use the fucking restroom.
Well, that's just it. The moment they refused it, they were there to catch something, anything. They caught them letting another non-paying customer who was white use the restroom, and ergo, they've got proof of a crime. The barista didn't do anyone any favors by handling it that way. But once they had their cause for upset, that's when they started flipping out on the barista, refusing to leave, and then an arrest was made. But the police didn't show up and arrest them just because
they were there. They arrested them.
They were there. No,
to leave
because they refused to leave.
Which brings me to the point. It got turned into a racist issue because they're black. Well, let's look at that. Let's look at the stereotyping there because they're black. Well, we all know that, and this isn't me being racist, this is me looking at stats. Somewhere around 15% of the country is African American or black or color, however you want to look at it. And such a small percent of the country has a high population of people consistently breaking the law. And I say this as a person who's been in prison. There aren't a whole lot of white guys in prison. And it's not because we don't do shit wrong. It just seems like a lot of times, and this goes for people I served time in prison with, they're much more violent. Sometimes they're quicker to flip off the handle. And in cases where you try to talk to them and get a response, it's because they think them being black, they have to fight harder to show proof. Or they're trying to represent their color and not show weakness, which is understandable. So you're not showing weakness. You're tough. You're strong. You're going to go after what you want. That's fine. But the stereotype, knowing that, people see that out of a lot of people. So if you consistently see a certain type of person do things, not all, but consistently see it happen, you start to know that there's a probability that if you see someone else that fits into that description, they're going to do it. And that is stereotyping. That is not racism.
Yes, it's
stereotyping.
Now, that is correct. I don't know if you've seen, there was a BBC panorama back before. I know how they got through. I know how it got made because it was absolutely perfect, in which they discussed things we won't say about race that are true. Hosted by a black guy, so I guess that's how they slipped it through. Excellent, brilliant man who articulated it perfectly. I wish I could put up a link for everyone. But yes, the problem is stereotyping, and the problem is that to a point, there's some truth to a lot of stereotypes.
I'm not
this
saying
doesn't make
stereotyping is
everyone
bad.
A monster. Oh, you don't know. Well, it can be. It depends on how accurate it is and how blindly it's reacted to.
All right. Stereotypes give you a general idea of what you're about to encounter.
Yes, but you shouldn't necessarily make assumptions based upon those stereotypes because while they have a kernel of truth, they don't necessarily accurately represent the people you're likely to meet on a day-to-day basis. They don't predict all that much about individuals.
Yes.
So if you see
However,
someone,
before I
oh,
spent
go
time in
ahead.
prison, I didn't interact real well with that type of person. After spending time in prison and being exposed to them, I understand some of the reasoning behind it. I understand some of the stereotypes. I've been explained some that I didn't know before. And once you go through some of that and realize it, you know what to look out for. If you have a friend that's a black man, he will straight up tell you what other black people will do to you and what to watch out for. They'll straight up tell you that other black people are going to do this. That's not stereotyping. Well, it is, but it's to a point. Stereotyping has a positive.
This is why stereotyping does not necessarily equal racism.
Right.
And if it is racism, then, well, see, that's one of the really wonderful things about racism. It's, strictly speaking, a very egalitarian vice. It doesn't refuse to manifest in any human species that I'm aware of.
Right. I don't know if... I'd hate to put it this way. Maybe it's because of majority feeling they have in there. And they do stand up... When I'm standing with a bunch of white friends, they better be damn good friends or they're just going to stand there if I get into a fight. I've seen a group of black friends that I have get into a fight, and they don't stand there and watch the fight. They walk up and kick at people and shit. Now, if you're a black guy with black friends, you're probably going to make it out of the fight because everybody's jumping in. If you're a white guy with white friends, you better hope your friends are good friends or they're just going to stand there and laugh at you when you get your ass beat up. It's weird when you try to look at that. I've hung out with Mexicans. I lived in California for a while. I've hung out with black people. I lived in California and New York. I've been to prison. I have no indifference towards any race or creed or nation or anything. But you learn that each type of person growing up with different things surrounding them, I guess it sort of could be racism if you break it down far enough, but people grow up a certain way and they hold to that. And I've seen black people that act more white than white people and white people that act more black than black people. And it's not just about their color. It's the personality that they hold. And oftentimes...
the skin color is indeed the absolute least important feature here.
Right. But the skin color sometimes demeans the personality. If that makes sense. You have some black people that are just assholes because they're black and they think they're better. And you have white people that are assholes because they're white and they think they're better. It's not inherent to one or the other. But more common, you see black people worried about them being, there are fewer of them. They have to stick together and fight harder. And I don't think that's exactly right, because when you get into areas with black people, it's often there's fewer white people and they gotta fight harder. I don't know. And it's hard. Don't take me out of context, guys, unless you're just after a laugh. But
there is a faction out there that it keeps encouraging people that they have to band together against whitey, that they're under assault. And they do, in many cases, believe they are under assault. This is one of the greatest disservices that the miserable media has done. They feed on fear. They need everyone to be scared of everyone else, and they want the black communities to be absolutely terrified of whites, and then at the same time, well, they're basically encouraging whites to be afraid of blacks. They want everyone to be scared of everyone else. It's completely unnecessary.
Black folks do fight hard, but they're directed by emotions in a lot of instances. Yeah. Throw it back to tribalism.
Well, they're being manipulated by emotions in some cases.
But if you want to think about
it's absolutely tribalism.
Let's take it to the racist slavery tribalism argument. Is that in the beginning, slaves that were brought to America were tribes selling other tribes to Englishmen headed to America for cheap labor. That's what they were. So when slaves started in America, the only way for them to pass information down was tribalistically. They taught music, they taught songs, they taught what heritage they could to their children while they had the chance, and that was what was carried on through slave times. Well, once slavery was over, the United States gave them very hard times, so they took what they had and that flourished. You take that frame of mind and run it through several generations and you breed it into people unintentionally, then that's what they're going to have. They're going to have that animosity from the slavery, which by now should have somewhat fallen off, and they're going to have that tribalistic behavior because that's what they're used to doing. And again, that should have fallen off too, because since slavery, we've incorporated many different types of persons from around the world, from different heritages, from different colors, from different nations. Some of this you should have seen slide off already and not be as much of a thing, because the tribalisticness would have blended more. The melting pot of America, but it hasn't.
Well, it hasn't, and I don't think that's entirely by accident. When we're talking the actual racists at work, they're the ones who are encouraging this sort of race war between whites and blacks. They're the ones who want you to believe that the whites are keeping you down and the blacks are going to come kill and rape you in the night.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't say I'm worried about it, but let's put it this way. If you look at statistics, if you are sitting in your house in your living room watching a video right now, it's getting towards evening for me, so let's say you're sitting there and someone breaks into your house. Let's look at statistical odds. Chances are 50-50 it's going to be black and white. Chances are damn close to 50-50 that it's going to be a black or a white guy running through your door to kill you in your living room if they broke into your house. So, let's look at 85% America is white, 15-ish percent is, well, 78% of America or something like that is white, 73%, and 15% is black. So why is it a 50-50 probability to be assaulted, injured, or broken and entered by a black guy versus a white guy? That's what it always comes down to when you try to look at the race thing, is they as a group, because of individual decisions, have created a stereotype that causes people to look at them and say, okay, well, because you're black, you have a higher probability of causing crime because those before you caused crime. Well, you're white, and white people own slaves, so you're going to own slaves. No, that's not how that works. That's not the same application of stereotypes versus race. I'm trying to figure out how to explain what I'm trying to say. I'm kind of losing myself in my own thought a little.
I can sympathize. The topic of slavery has always annoyed me immensely, just the fact that there isn't... is there anyone alive now who has owned a slave in the U.S.? Certainly, has anyone who's owned a slave in the U.S.? Because slavery does still exist. It's still out there, just not in any of the countries where it seems to come up as a topic often.
12%. Then take out the old and the very young, so 6%, so 2%. Yeah, well, yeah, the statistics, think about how low a percentage of white people, like what, 0.9% of white people are in prison? Did you know 10% of the American population has been arrested or served time? 10% of legal American citizens have been arrested and or served time. Bet you didn't know that. 10%. That seems awful high, doesn't it?
Yeah, fairly high. 1 in 10.
1 in 10. How do I find these out? You know, I thought I might run for president a few years ago. Tried to see if a felon can run for president. I can, by the way. In 47 states, I think it is. Screwed up. I look at these things. I look at the statistics. I stop and ask stupid questions that have no rhyme, reason, or point, and then I'll ask another one, and eventually I'll get to a point. Or I'll learn something that I never knew just because I questioned it. And these are the things that people don't always do. This is why when you look at race, and you've never served time in prison or interacted with other criminals, you don't realize how they all act.
Pardon, Saki the Real, you don't by chance happen to have the stats for English
Britain?
land? Yes.
Yeah, I can't
What
run
what
for
what, what
prime
is the
minister, so I didn't check.
well, there's a small chance Saki the Real might know. So if he does, that would be fascinating because I've come across some Brits at least who insist that America is just so much worse.
You know, prisons for profit. Even the state run prisons are run as a profit agency.
Now that is a huge problem.
State run prisons in most states, what they do is they have inmates build and run state furniture. So, one of the prisons I served time in, their main function was building desks and cabinets for the correctional department. So wherever in the state they needed equipment, if the state office building or the corrections department, anything affiliated with state or local government could order from the prison system, they would pay that money to the prison, and that money would pay for the inmates being there.
Yes, that's the unfortunate result of a caveat allowing slave labor, provided it's, prisoner slave labor.
Everything we wore in prison was made by a fellow inmate. The soap you used, made by a fellow inmate. The clothes, sewn by an inmate. The boots, run through a press by an inmate. I was in 3 prisons where I know they made different things. Each one specialized in different parts. And they manufacture it. So prisons in some states have actually become assembly or manufacturing systems for the state to save money on supplies.
And where does that savings go?
It pays for the prisoner. In order to feed a prisoner, it costs something like $17,000 per year at the cheapest. So in order to offset
Uh,
that price, what the state does is try to manufacture and sell the goods in order to cut some of that price down and then leave taxpayer dollars to cover the rest of the burden.
yes. Well, that's perhaps one of the better likelihoods.
Yeah, there is no way with as little as manufactured in some of these plants that they made enough to cover the cost of the prison. Do you love that smell of jailhouse clothes? Some of them actually fucking... You wouldn't even know they were made in prison. Wouldn't even know. Never know your socks were made in prison. Couldn't tell the difference. Let's see. I've heard about phone centers too. What about phone centers? You don't want to use a prison phone center. Oh yeah, that's a moneymaker right there. Okay, so if you've never received a phone call from somebody in prison, it's a collect call. Usually the first minute is somewhere around $2 or $3, and then each subsequent minute is anywhere from $4 to $7. Yeah. I owed a family member a few $100s for collect calls when I got out. So that's definitely a money making scam there, because there's no way a collect call from prison costs fucking $20 for 10 minutes. Commissary was awesome, because I was in a state prison. State taxes don't apply to things you buy in prison. Therefore, cigarettes were awesomely cheap, almost half price.
For every 100k people, 148 have gone to prison in England and Wales. Okay, I'm sad to say that seems to imply to me, and I haven't done the math perfectly myself, that America wins.
Yeah, we win. We are like one of the world's top jailers. We throw people in jail for everything. For the record, I was in jail for drug sales. Woohoo. No, I didn't sell enough to be in a federal prison, and I didn't transport my drugs across state lines. We do everything big. Yeah, I was in a 6-story prison.
Yeah, this is one of the things that definitely Bernie was right about.
Yeah. What else do we got to talk about? We've been going for about an hour, so we're within the golden zone.
Yes, I'm inclined to continue laughing about Thundercats, Thundercats, Thundercats.
You want
No.
to know what kind of degenerate I am? I numbskull, you're a degenerate. I've got some college education, a VOTEC certificate, a couple semesters of classes. So much so that when I went to prison, apparently I was so well educated. I was one of four in the originally 32 people in my block. Four of 32 that they made me be a teacher because I passed all the tests and had a GED. And 28 people in my block did not have a high school education.
Pardon, I got distracted. I can never keep this badge straight. I think I need to make it something I can adjust on the fly.
So
It'll
would
just
I.
go sideways on me.
You could always do the doctor badge thing, hang another badge from that one and another badge from that one, and then they'll hang straight down.
Oh, so I can basically shortcut that by just putting it on a single point and then adding a weight.
There. Yeah. Or just sewing it
Not a
flat.
bad idea. I might have to try that sometime.
Ah. Numbered school Velcro badge. I got my GED at 15 for 1 year.
No, by the way, I need to clarify, I did not say that Sarkeesian is a Thundercats hoe. I don't think Sarkeesian has seen an episode of any iteration of Thundercats, quite possibly ever. But will, I suspect, at some point in the not too distant future, come out in defense of this latest embarrassment.
I am almost willing to say Anita Sarkeesian of the Gamergate movement, which was before my time of caring, probably has played fewer hours on video games than my 5-year-old daughter.
No, that's absurd. Women don't play video games, I'm told. It's too
My daughter
toxic.
loves
Toxic
video
masculinity
games.
keeps them out.
My daughter thinks they're great. She just runs into walls, falls down holes, launches herself in the air, kills herself, drops herself, smacks things, dies, runs herself over. She still plays. Probably plays better than Anita.
I wouldn't really be surprised. There's no way she's played half the game she's claimed to, especially that one time she bashed Fallout New Vegas
Yeah.
for not having enough female characters.
I've seen a good number, and I got to a point where I was just like, no, this is a dead end for me. There's nothing new I want to cover in this person. So,
Well, I think that's eventually been the consensus of most people, which is why they're having to find new ways to hate fuck the wasp nest.
yeah. Me, I thought I came up with a good idea. I'm working on it. I guess I'm kind of waiting to learn, and as are you probably, the algorithm to figuring out how to be a streamer and grow. There's information for how to video and grow, but to stream and grow is a bit more effort overall. There's no outline. We're in somewhat fresh territory. It's been done, but it hasn't been done to the scale that people are doing. So to find out what's best, you just got to pay attention. And I think we circled all the way around back to YouTube.
The circle is complete.
Girls don't have the hand-eye coordination boys have. Very true. You can be trained to have it to a point, but there's only so much capability each individual is going to have. And based on the male-female sexual diametric system, overall, you measure and average out girls, they have a capability. When you measure and average out boys, they have a capability, and boys are averagely more capable than girls, which is, oh my god, that's sexist.
Well, it's
No,
only a problem when it's taken too far, as if it's some sort of thing that tells you all you need to know about every woman you encounter. Averages are not. I don't think humanity is good at understanding averages at all.
no. Well,
Addressing advantages and disadvantages over a massive number of people, not quite the damning thing it's sometimes taken to be.
What are the 4 words in math for averages? Mean, mode, median, and something else. One that's not an M. The median is the average. It's going to be the middle ground. The mode is the most often. And no, mean is average. Median is the center ground. So the mean would be if you took everybody and balanced them out to come up with one number that specified the whole group. The mode would be the most predominant factor in the group. The median would be wherever the middle ground in the group ran, usually somewhere around, or the median would be the middle ground of the group, somewhere around the mean, but not always on the mean. Range, thank you. And the range is the difference between the highest and the lowest. In understanding probability and averages, knowing those will help you realize that, okay, the average person can do this. How do I judge whether this person is average, above, or below? And do I assign them to the task that I have at mind? The average woman's what, 5'6"? If a woman is 5'11" and the guy I have in front of me is 5'7", I'm asking the woman to change the light bulb for me.
As one should. Again, that's the whole thing about obsessing too much over averages.
Yeah.
Really, if we're doing this right, the averages are a scientific curiosity. Good for the researchers, something that should look on, something that should not be fucked with to serve any agenda. That'll be useful in precise contexts. But when it comes down to it, we just need to put the best person for the job to that job, usually by tests. And everyone should be able to take the test. That's equality of opportunity. That's fantastic. Eminently desirable.
Test. As a person who formerly managed a grocery store with anywhere from 6 to 30 employees in it at a time.
Okay. My phrasing could be poor, but
you have to choose who's best for the job based on their abilities. And if you give somebody a job and they do it poorly, you have to know to take them off and assign somebody else. And the test that you run in that situation is one time you pick each person to do the job. You grade to yourself how they do the job and decide who does which job better. And then when you work with that person again, you go, you know what? You did a really good job on refilling the bread, better than everybody else. I'm going to have you go refill bread. When you're done with that, come back and do what you were doing. I'm going to have so-and-so go do this because they were really good at it and they'll get it done well. It's not about...
This is one of the things that I remember finding funny about the election of Trump. They've made a big deal about how he tends to replace people in his administration rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Dilbert called that, the creator thereof, rather.
So what you're saying is you are of average intelligence. You should not worry about the averages. Yeah. I don't worry about the average. I worry about where people fall from the average. Just because the average female makes 79% of what the average male does doesn't mean that Susan Wojcicki doesn't make millions more dollars than me every year. You know, averages have nothing to do with the outcome. It just gives you an idea. And he did
fire a lot of them, I would note. But see, my point was that this is one of the things that were silliest thing, but complain about Trump. His firing people and replacing them, that, as the creator of Dilbert explained, is iterative hiring. You're basically just going through people until you find the person who gets the results. It's not really a bad approach. We should be doing that a lot more when it comes to political positions. We've got way too many lifers in there who clearly don't give a shit.
When people would get hired and they'd be assigned to my shift, I would be told that before they finish their 90 days, usually, you have to fill out this paperwork that says what their job performance was. And if you want to keep them, they have to perform to a certain point of your expectation over that 3-month period. So you make notes on this sheet on the back of it for 3 months, and at the end you try to decide whether that employee is worth investing further collateral in on behalf of the company? Does this employee after 90 days deserve the extended benefits that a full-time employee with benefits deserves? Or are they just monkey farting around for a paycheck and they're going to leave at the first option of leaving? Are you wasting your time training this person up to do a job when they're just going to turn around? You have to judge and grade and base it on performance and evaluation. And when they start, you go off of, damn, I've been drinking tonight. What was the word? Not segregation. You go off stereotypes. You understand that, hey, I got a girl. I'm not going to give her a water pellet the first night. Let's put her on the cereal aisle and see how she does there. If she does really well on cereal, maybe I can put her in the water aisle. But let's see how she does on cereal. But if I get a guy in there the first night, I'm putting you on the water aisle. Let's see how fast you fill it. Then I can judge how far down I need to move you. Whereas with a female, I'm going by their average ability and working my way up as they show me they can do it. It's a different perspective because I'm going on a different outlook. A man is averagely stronger than a woman, so I'm going to ask the man first, especially if he's bigger than the woman.
Well, you could even present the same job to them both and see who really wants it. I suspect
I've done that
if they
too.
are...
That does not work.
Oh, really?
That does not work. Do not put a man and a woman in the water aisle together because the man will not work. As screwed up as that sounds, you put a man and a woman in an aisle together, the woman will work harder, the man will not work.
That is really rather fascinating, but what I actually meant was when it came to jobs involving heavy lifting, which one is more likely to want the job involving heavy lifting?
In some cases, you'll get a woman that's more out to prove she can do it. And I have no problem with that. Prove you can do it, I'll put you on it. If I think you're struggling, I'll put you on the detergent aisle because it's a little lighter than the soda aisle.
And by the way, Lady Wolfhard is right. Stereotypes are abusable, but then again, everything is abusable. You can discourage it, but you can't really prevent the use of stereotypes. It doesn't work that way. That's borderline policing thought, and that's a disaster waiting to happen.
You want a horrible stereotype for today's day and age? Hey, I bet you, because you're a man, you have a penis.
Oh, yes. I should be deeply offended by your assumption of my genitalia.
How sad is that? Because you look like and portray a man, I believe you're a man, but I shouldn't guess you're a man. I should go up and ask you if you identify as a man.
I'm willing to tolerate this, but actually, I recently adopted the gender identity squircob, because that can sincerely shut up people who are inclined to label you a monster by virtue of your gender.
Skeletons don't have genitals.
Intersectional feminists. Yes, you identify as a skeleton, so ergo, well, why not? You say your gender is skeleton because they sincerely have no idea how to handle that themselves. There is no metric separating someone who is a non-binary gender from someone who just says they are.
Right. And that's
the only objective metric. The actual intersex people, which do exist, they have claims. The generally hermaphroditic individuals.
People have a genetic or chromosomal deficiency that could lead to an abnormality, and that abnormality does not include that of hermaphroditic humans, which can total up to a presumed 0.3% of the population, being a 1 in like 8,000 odds of being hermaphroditic. I forget what the odds of hermaphrodites are. I was just reading a report the other day.
I had the misfortune of reading National Geographic on this point and other science publications stressing that, oh, well, there's plenty of non-binary people. See, there's people who have slight genetic defects and, the urethra opens up on the underside of their dick. See, it's a third gender.
Do you want to hear what's messed up? You know how we hear the gonads and chromosomes and there's 4 characteristics of sex? Yeah. Did you know there's... And I can't name exactly what they are. Maybe Saki will. There's 4 types of genetic chromosomal mutations. It's like one's for forgotten, one's for too many, one's for something. There's 4 types. And of those 4 types, there's like 32 types of chromosomal deficiencies that interact with the chromosome and DNA that has to do with gender. And most of those deficiencies lead to a male or a female entirely, but there's a separate, I think 4 or 5 effects that can lead to a type of hermaphroditic, and usually what happens is everything will develop properly, but they'll have something additional.
Supernumerary nipple? Well, clearly they're a third sex entirely, but at that point...
There's hermaphrodites who have male genitalia, but will have, not uterine lining, but they'll have the fallopian tubes or some part of the female structure in them. Like, it'll start to build, like, their testicles won't drop and they'll form into ovaries, but their penis will drop and the scrotum will form. Something will form a little off. It is very confusing, and there's a lot of different... There's like 32 chromosome deficiencies, not including the ones that lead to hermaphroditism.
Yeah, it's a complex thing, but the point there is that these cases are vanishingly rare, tragic, and generally speaking, I think most people who do wind up with these rare conditions don't necessarily want to be arbitrarily labeled a third or fourth or fifth or some other sexuality or sex or gender. Doesn't matter which term you use on this point. And that also is a huge problem with the identity trenders. There's something incredibly warped about saying that, hey, is your dick shape funny? You're not a real man.
How do I know? I don't look at other guys' dicks. How do I know if my shape's funny? I'm heterosexual. I don't go around going, dude, how big's your dick?
Yeah,
like mine,
someone has to
a little cap on
take
there.
pictures of their dick and run across a compendium of dick shapes to know if they have this super special condition that allows them to add non-binary to their Twitter profile.
By the way, if it curves, it's a problem with the muscles and tightening in proteins in the muscle forming. It's not that you're a different gender.
No one will be seeing my cock on stream, just for the record. I did show my bone to Miss Steam, but that still wasn't my dick.
Well, I think we ought to wrap it up here. We're hitting an hour and a half, and my wife
I'm
gave me the
inclined
shoulder tap.
It has been a blast, and this certainly seems to have been a rather successful experiment in regards to the whole sort of kind of being there thing.
Yeah, I was going to look for things to put you in front of, but I didn't know how you'd turn out, so I didn't know how to scale you versus other images, so I decided to put me there, and of course I got that. Oh, I moved me.
Well, for the record, there's absolutely no reason I shouldn't be able to fit behind a podium.
Yeah, I'm going to give that a shot next time. This was just me fucking around. This is shooting the crap stream. It's a whatever. I'm bored. I need something to do. Say hi to everybody and tinker.
There was something that bothered me earlier. I want to address this really quick before we really close it up. You got a picture of you shooting a gun at shit. Have you considered it being a gun that shoots shit?
Ooh.
You can shoot at the shit, or you can actually shoot shit.
I didn't think about that. I might have to update a turd gun. I like it.
There we go. See, we've as a culture, developed a rather narrative, a very narrow impression of what a gun should be. Why do we still have to shoot bullets? I think we need to start really looking into alternatives. And there we go. I had to mention this.
I like it. I might have to use that next time I toil with this shooting with giggles. I hope there was a few giggles for some of you, at least. With that, I don't have an outro because I didn't have an intro. So, goodbye.